the last group. Just wanted to make another round of introductions to the judges. Katana Eubank, Cynthia Clanton, Cliff Becker, Bob Wilhelm, and Beth Berge. And another congratulations to all of the competing teams that made it to the finals. University of Guelph, Kansas State University, Purdue, Iowa State, Cal Poly SLO, and the University of Missouri. Please silence all cell phones. With that, let me introduce the University of Missouri.
We look forward for you to hear this. We're really excited to share this with you. Excited to share this with you. We're excited to share this with you. Excited to share this with you.
What's up, everybody? My name's Zach, and along with my cousin Drew and everyone else on the stage, we are JerryRig Industries. But before we get started, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Ag Funder for coming and letting us pitch for investment.
The JerryRig Industries story began 17 years ago in August of 2005 when Zach and I were just 4 years old. On those summer days, you could usually find us out playing in our grandma's garden, which, as many farm kids you do, we use as a sandbox. While our grandma was out there picking tomatoes or pulling weeds, we'd be down on our hands and knees playing with our toy tractors and burying all sorts of treasures.
Now, as Drew and I were playing in that garden, one day we looked up and we saw Grandpa climbing the ladder to the grain bin, which we thought was awesome because he gets to play in the biggest sandbox we have on the farm.
However, on that day, we found out all too quickly how easily the treasure of life can become buried underneath those golden piles of grain.
Here in the United States, from the years 2011 to 2020, on average, there are 30 grain bin entrapments per year. Of those 30, 18 are deaths. Hello, everyone. My name is Reagan, and I am a co-founder of JerryRig Industries. I just want to relieve you all first to let you know that, thankfully, Zach and Drew's grandfather was saved that day by a local fire department. But it doesn't change the fact that that traumatic incident lived in their brains until I met them in college, where they had the means and expertise to create a product that would prevent a farmer from ever having to enter the grain bin again. And that's where the story of JerryRig starts.
Our JerryRig is a first-of-its-kind robot manufactured by our partners at AgroRobot that offers an efficient and effective grain handling solution as well as catering to our zero-entry mentality. From our first edition prototype you see on the table to our current edition up on the screen, you can truly see how far our product has come. The JerryRig contains a battery pack as well as electric motors inside its hard shell plastic case mounted on top of a twin screw auger setup that allows it to glide efficiently and effectively across the surface of the grain to agitate hot spots, break up any crust that may be forming, and level out the surface of the grain so that any reason a farmer may need to enter the bin with his best friend, the aluminum scoop shovel, is mitigated.
Well, thank you, Drew, for that. And as you've heard already, we're incredibly passionate about grain bin safety. But as investors, I'm sure you want to hear some of those marketing numbers. My name is Hallie Blades. I am our R&D director, and I'm going to share some of those with you. So we did our own research. We polled 200 farmers and asked them what their least favorite task was on the farm. And 87% of those farms responded saying that getting in that grain bin is their least favorite task. We specifically polled farms in the Midwest because of the high on-farm grain storage capacity in that area. But all totaled out, the entire US has 13.5 billion bushels of on-farm grain storage and 11.8 billion bushels of off-farm grain storage, like grain elevators. And that's only going to increase. As we've seen over the past 75 years, grain bins have grown, and we have so much more space and more bushels of storage in the US.
That's right. And from that 750,000 grain bins that have been built in the last 75 years, Drew, Zach, and I took a look at the numbers, and we decided on a conservative 50% are still in use. Of that 50%, the 375,000, about 79% of those grain bins are in our target geographic area. That leads us to a market capture of 2.6%. We chose this based on our resources and to project a successful market capture.
Now, as I watched Grandpa climb that ladder of that grain bin, he, among all farmers, knew that he was taking a risk. But he had an incentive for that risk. He had two factors why he took that risk.
On that day in August of 2005, we had begun shelling corn early on our farm in order to take advantage of a price premium in the September corn contract when compared to the December contract when the fall crop is typically marketed. That meant that corn was coming out of the field and into the bin at 25% moisture, which left it susceptible to crusting and hotspot development, which is why our grandpa crawled into the bin on that day, which led us to develop our complete JerryRig Industries lineup of grain handling equipment. Of course, I've already spoken with you about the JerryRig and how it works. We also offered a gerrymander. The gerrymander is an attachable sweep setup that replaces the augers on the bottom of our JerryRig with wheels as well as a powered brush so the robot can drive across the floor of the bin and sweep the grain towards the center sump, eliminating the need of the farmer to enter the bin with his shovel to get the final grain out of the bin and the floor cleaned off for next year's crop. Lastly, we have our JerryCarry. Our JerryCarry unit is manufactured in-house and features a closed-loop winch system along with an automatic mounting bracket so that the robot can be carried up and into the bin without the farmer ever having to so much as leave the ground. Additionally, the JerryCarry also includes our revolutionary camera setup. These cameras connect to our robot via Bluetooth. The cameras include a LiDAR sensor as well as a thermal imaging sensor, so the robot knows both the heat signature of the grain and can sense those hot spots and figure out where it needs to work to get rid of those, as well as the topography of the grain so that the grain can be leveled out and the farmer never needs to enter the bin.
Wow, that was impressive. Just wait till he talks about finances later. But first, now that you know a little bit more about our grain management system, it's really important to Zach and I that you truly understand the foundations of JerryRig Industries. And that starts with our simple strategy statement. We are here to automate unsafe and unpleasant tasks for farmers. We aim to provide a safe, convenient, and efficient way for farmers to not only think about, but act on grain bin management. Now, when we were creating our executive summary here for you today, we had 3 key planning assumptions in mind. The first is that we have a provisional patent and are combustible dust and hazard analysis, or DHA approved. Secondly, we have a partnership with Farm Bureau Insurance, which Kate will talk about later in our marketing mix. And finally, we have a 3-year manufacturing partnership with our friends over at Agribot.
Now, our goals at JerryRig Industries are 1, we have to make our customers happy. 2, we have to make money. That way we can reinvest that money back into research and development. And 3, we want to create a brand recognition that runs so deep it gets back to the little boys playing in the sandbox. Now, I look at that personally from a co-founder's perspective, but what's important to me as a farmer is return on investment. Our JerryRig system saves farmers time while allowing them to never have to worry about what is sitting in their bin, which in turn means they never have to enter that grain bin again.
And Zach's not the only farmer who would benefit from something like JerryRig, but he is a little bit younger than our target demographic, which brings us to customer segment. Hi everybody, my name is Kate Thompson, and I'm our Chief Marketing Officer here at JerryRig. Our primary audience is row crop farmers over the age of 35. Thanks to Hallie's research, we know that this encompasses 95% of all U.S. farms. Specifically, we will be focusing on those with between 2 and 10,000 acres, which brings us to John. John is a 67-year-old farmer from Illinois. He farms with his 2 sons on their 5th-generation family farm. He has a mentality of, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and his best friend is, you guessed it, the aluminum scoop shovel. Our secondary audience is key female decision makers on the farm. Thanks to the 2017 Census of Agriculture, we know that this is 56% of all US farms. These are women who are highly conscious of farm safety, and Martha is a perfect example of that. She's a 52-year-old loan officer from Iowa, and she juggles her life between working full-time, work on the farm, and raising her 4 children. And because of that, she's acutely interested in learning more about technologies that can improve farm safety for her family.
And it's those safety-conscious people, like Martha, that lead us to the reactive safety gear that we classify as our indirect competitors. First off, we have harnesses such as those offered by Northern Strands. These harnesses allow farmers to attach themselves to the roof of the bin, so that way, in the event of a breakaway, they would not become entrapped by the flowing grain. Additionally, we also have gear supplied by companies like KC Supply that are sold to local fire departments in rural areas. This gear allows them to much better respond to entrapments once they occur. Additionally, we also have a reactive type competitor in our direct competition. Grain salvage companies, such as Dakota Grain and Salvage, can come out to the farm in the event that the grain in the bin moves out of marketable condition. Once this occurs, these salvage companies can clean the grain out of the bin at a total loss to the farmer for the strict purpose of making that bin usable again for the next year's harvest. Lastly, we have our one true competitor at JerryRig Industries, which is the traditional on-farm management, which is that farmer with his scoop shovel. Of course, while this is traditional, inexpensive, and convenient, it completely violates our zero entry mentality, which makes our JerryRig system a truly one-of-a-kind grain management system.
That's right, Drew. Truly, our biggest strength here is that we're one of a kind. But with that strength comes the weakness that there is new market uncertainty. But with a new market comes a lack of competitors, which we see as a huge opportunity. But finally, our biggest threat is that farmers are resistant to technology. But as we continue to see every single day, they are becoming more receptive to technologies that make their farming safer and more sustainable and efficient, which is exactly what our product does.
And what do farmers hate more than technology? Getting into that dang grain bin. And that has been the key focus of our marketing strategy. JerryRig Industries is well positioned to both decrease risk while increasing grain quality. And both of these while improving the quality of life for our customers. You've probably recognized our passion for innovation up here on the stage today. And Zach can talk to you all day about customer satisfaction, especially when it comes to our fancy website where you actually purchase the grain management system. All told, it comes in at a total of $5,000, which is significantly more than that scoop shovel, but significantly less than a life. Next up, we have where we spend our marketing dollars. This map corresponds to the one that you saw from Hallie earlier in terms of on-farm grain storage. With Iowa and Illinois coming in first, and then in the second year, we'll expand to Nebraska and Minnesota, and then to the greater Midwest in year 3, which brings us to my favorite part, promotions. To kick things off, we'll be having a launch party right across the historic Mississippi River from our headquarters. We'll be having a dinner and film screening of the movie Silo. Now, if you haven't seen this movie, I would highly recommend, but stay tuned because we'll be sending out invitations shortly. Now, the third full week of February every year is National Grain Bin Safety Week. And to celebrate, we're splitting up our team and going across Iowa and Illinois to host pop-up events where people can enter to win a grain management system, and that is sponsored by our friends over at Illinois Farm Bureau. Now, we wouldn't be a company if we didn't have social media. Because of the events that I just talked about, and in addition the trade shows that we'll be going to, we rely more heavily on user-generated content in this space. In fact, the TikTok that you just saw on the screen was sent in by one of our users. Now, in terms of paid media in agriculture, print is still king. And so we took advantage of these magazines. The color corresponds to the map that I showed you earlier, and the number is the circulation of each one of those magazines. And that picture is the full-page advertisement that we'll be showing. Now, Drew, what do you do in the cab of a tractor all day long?
Well, on my farm, when I get in the tractor, I usually like to listen to market talk in the morning, and in the afternoon, I like to hook up my Bluetooth and listen to some of my favorite agricultural podcasts.
I'm certainly glad because we were counting on it. These 4 radio podcasts were ones targeted in Hallie's survey as being the most listened to by our target demographic. And in fact, the Off the Husk podcast is hosted by one of our key influencers, Zach Johnson, the millennial farmer. We'll also be partnering with Kylie Epperson and #AndyClean. Shout out to the Canadians in the room.
Earlier, I had the chance to mention to you all that each year there are on average 30 grain bin entrapments, and 18 of those are deaths. But what I didn't mention is that 1 in every 6 of those incidents is a child under the age of 16. That's why we've developed our final promotion, which is the Zero Entry Mentality Scholarship. We will be launching this scholarship in the 5 states with the most on-farm grain bin entrapments to date. And with this scholarship, we hope to promote not only our brand, but more importantly, a zero entry mentality for young adults that are about to go onto the farm.
Reagan and Kate's discussion of our promotion leads us perfectly into our marketing budget. So even though since they've kind of already gleaned over some of the big details from this, I'd like to direct your attention to our summary lines highlighted in purple down here at the bottom. As you can see, our total marketing expenditures is increasing year over year as we roll out to a bigger and bigger geographical area. However, as we grow and develop as a company and our brand awareness grows, we see our marketing costs as a percent of our sales decreasing over each of those years. Now moving on to this graphic of our overall operating expenses by quarter. The first thing you're going to notice about this is probably the obnoxious spike that we have each year in quarter 1. We can explain this through the fact that most agricultural trade shows that we plan on attending are occurring each year in this first quarter, since that's the downtime on many American row crop farms. Additionally, Grain Bin Safety Week, occurring in the 3rd week of February, also occurs in quarter 1, and since we're having those pop-up events, that continues to contribute to that expense in the first quarter of each year. Now moving on to what you're most interested in as investors, which is our income statement. The basis of our sales is on the 2.2% market capture, which Reagan explained a little bit about earlier. The total of the 7,635 units of the JerryRig that we project on selling is broken down into 1,135 units of sales in year 1, 2,600 units in year 2, and 3,900 units in year 3. Moving down to our net profit line, of course you can see that we're planning on posting nearly a $314,000 loss in year 1. Since we're just getting our feet under us and had to make significant investments in our company to get off the ground, we aren't projecting turning a profit in our first year of operation. However, as our brand grows and we start to get a better customer base built, we plan on seeing our profits expand to nearly $1.5 million in year 2 and $3.4 million in year 3. Not bad for a little startup, if you ask me. And lastly, what all of this means for you as investors. Since we are an early entrant into an emerging market, this means that we can quickly grow and be able to realize some of those stellar profits that you saw on the last slide. This means that we can pay off our debt and increase owner equity very quickly. And once we get that debt paid off, we plan on starting to distribute quarterly earnings to you as investors to help give you a little bit more return on your investment.
Now, earlier I spoke about our goals at JerryRig Industries. 1, we have to make our customers happy. If we aren't making our customers happy, why sell them our product? If we are making our customers happy, of course we want to know we're making them happy, but we want them to spread the word about our company and tell them why JerryRig is so awesome. 2nd, we have to make money. If we aren't making money, Drew, head of finances, is going to go in, do a financial audit, and see what's working and what's not working. If we're exceeding our goals, Hallie is going to get more money for research and development. That way we can create bigger and better products for our customers. Lastly, I talked about brand recognition. If we aren't getting brand recognition, we're going to look for the disconnect between our marketing plan and our customers. And if we are, as we expand throughout the Midwest, as you see in year 3, we have to expand our marketing plan to reach all of those customers.
Canada, we're looking at you next. To bring you back to the very beginning of our story, I want to remind you of Zach and Drew's grandpa, who's actually pictured here on the screen in one of our half-page magazine advertisements, to remind us that JerryRig Grain Management System is truly a revolutionary technology that gives farmers convenience, safety, and peace of mind to ensure that those 2 little boys from the sandbox can farm for generations to come.
Thank you so much for spending a small piece of your afternoon with us. We will now open the floor for questions.
Maybe a simple one to start. Can you just roll through how you got to that $5,000 cost per package?
Absolutely. So kind of our basis for the cost segment on each of our products is the fact that we are, our partners at AgriRobot, the cost on the JerryRig system is basically starting out in year one is $1,600 a unit. This allows us to have about a 40% profit margin per unit, or operating profit margin anyway. Of course, we have to cover our own costs, which is pretty reasonable considering that we have a unique product and there aren't many competitors in our marketplace. Additionally, we have similar cost of or operating profit margins on our other two products, the Gerrymander and the JerryCarry. And now our pricing setup, we kind of price that out as, of course, the JerryRig is it's kind of the foundation of our whole system. If you're going to buy anything, you're going to buy a JerryRig and a JerryCarry. That way you have something you can use in a bin. Then additionally, we're kind of set up to where on our JerryCarry, that way, because if you can have one JerryRig for more than one bin. That way you can, the JerryCarry, we're not quite spending as much, or we're not quite making as much money on those units. That way our customers can get more utility out of their robot, which is a big investment, obviously, and they can use that in many different bins on their farm. And then the Gerrymander is priced, as far as profit structure, is similar to the JerryRig, since it's kind of an add-on attachment that gives them a little bit extra functionality.
I was going to ask the question on, you kind of answered, I guess, already. That's size of bin and number of units. Is there a size of bin that one machine can usually manage? And then how does that kind of ratchet up as far as number needed?
Yeah, so like one grain robot in one bin, it takes usually like a 30,000 bushel, sorry, he's the farmer here. The 30,000 bushel bin, it usually takes about 4 hours to level the whole pile and break up all the crusts. Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay.
So obviously you want to do it in a shorter time period, you have more units in there, but one can accommodate it. And your battery life, I take it, goes for at least 4 hours then?
Yeah, that's kind of, the battery life is sized based on the 30,000 bushel bin, which is usually about, that's about a 36-foot diameter bin typically. That's kind of the average on-farm size grain bin. So that's kind of what we projected our batteries off. However, if you have a bigger bin, say a 48 or 60-foot bin, you can actually run multiple different units inside that bin, so you can still have this cover that larger bin in one battery life.
So what's the lifetime of one of the units? Thinking about when farmers would need to go in and replace pieces or buy new units, like what's that look like?
Sure thing. So in our early tests of the battery systems that AgriRobot provides us, those batteries can usually last about 7 years if they're being used regularly. However, if you just have it sitting in the shed all the time and those batteries aren't having an up-down charge cycle, they don't quite last as long. However, the full robot itself comes with a 3-year limited warranty on it. That covers all components except for the augers, because they're considered to be wear parts. And we usually estimate that those augers can move about 100,000 bushels before they are worn out, but we have plenty of replacement parts on hand to fix those augers, because that's by far the biggest parts sourcing thing that we need, because those are really the only wear part on the machine.
So a little bit of a follow-up question to that. Have we accounted for like tech support? I mean, I'm assuming, if people have issues, or I always do with everything technological. So how do we account for that in terms of customer service?
Absolutely. So we actually have built into in our projections, we have 2 customer service representatives. One of those is mostly sitting in our office, and they're answering the phone and taking questions remotely. The other one is actually traveling around, and they have a full system in the back of their pickup, and they can either demo that unit to our potential customers, or they can provide service on the farm to customers who've already bought a robot.
Great.
I'm curious from a marketing standpoint, did you explore partnerships with any of the grain bin manufacturers or the organizations like National Farm Medicine Center or the Farm Safety for Just Kids programs?
Not the ones that you specifically mentioned. We did think about grain management or grain bin manufacturers. We also thought about crop insurance agents as well, but we decided that the money was with the Partnership and Farm Bureau, and so we'll be doing a lot of promotions through them specifically. We did think about it.
Okay, great, thank you.
As you look at one of the statements you said up front was that farmers are a little resistant to change. As you put this out there, did you, as you were putting your promotion plan together, do you have anything that has displays of this, showing it in action, hands-on, they like to touch rather than just watch a video. Is that built in anywhere?
Yeah, so actually, the TikTok that I got to show on my social media slide, that was actually at one of our trade shows that we've been going to. So we bring in a big tub of corn, and you can actually see the JerryRig driving across the corn. Since there's no camera set up with at the top of the bin, we actually have, in earlier prototypes, we have a remote control. And so we give it to little kids so that they can see, like, drive it like a little tractor in the corn. And so that's really that hands-on component that attracts people to our booth, and that's where we're seeing a lot of our sales is at the trade show, where we have some of those trade show specials.
And then I'd also like to add to that with, you talked about resistant to technology. Our product, we have seen greatly has people from innovators to laggards in that adoption spectrum. We are seeing that our product, even though some are resistant to technology, this is an exciting tech that people are willing to adopt.
It doesn't seem like that type of tech adoption would be too tough. What other, or I guess I should say, is price the biggest barrier right now? And if so, you know, how do you kind of counter that? First of all, I understand how you started this to say that nothing's more valuable than life, right? But
So just to clarify, are you asking more of like how are we reaching farmers, or are you asking just like how are they?
what would be
What are
is,
their- what are
is
their
price
decisions?
the biggest? Is price the biggest barrier? I guess that you've seen right now when you start to talk and bring this into the field.
We have not seen that price is the biggest barrier, only because you know, equipment on the farm can run to $500,000. So the price isn't necessarily the issue, especially because it accounts for liability on the farm with that insurance component. But we would say, I would say probably the largest issue is the tech, and that's why we did have that as the feature of our biggest threat. But as I mentioned earlier, the technology, it is quite user-friendly, and we do have those customer service reps that can help take care of farmers if they have questions or concerns.
We also kind of did a few calculations, if you don't mind me adding on, about what the actual farmer ROI is to put this thing in a bin. So if you have a 36-foot bin like we were talking about earlier with a 3-inch crust on it, that's about 600 bushels of grain that are going to be trapped in that crust and are going to become unmarketable if you don't do something about that. So at current market prices, that's a little over $2,000 just in running the robot in that one bin. So if you have an adverse situation, it can pay itself off in a really quick manner.
Yeah, you had that in perspective. That's a great selling point, for sure. Yep.
I love the on-farm safety component of this, but have you looked at whether you could sell more units also to sell it to commercial grain storage facilities?
We definitely thought about that, especially when we were trying to figure out, nail down our customer segment. But we would say, since in the more commercial units, are you speaking about grain elevators, for example? The grain has moved so much that it isn't an issue, whereas pulling the grain out of the field at 25% storage and you got to keep it till the market goes up, that's where you see the crusting and the hot spots and more of the issues that farmers have. And then in addition to that, typically people that are working on the grain elevators, not to say that they're more careful than farmers, but they do have a lot more hands-on experience dealing with that day to day, so it's not as much of an issue.
You would acknowledge the spouse as a secondary audience on that. Do you have any specific tactics in there to reach them, right? I mean, obviously they may go to the trade show, they may do some other things, but it's probably a little different message there as well.
So when you look at our marketing budget, the whole social media line, that's all our women. When you look at Facebook, when you look at Instagram, those are all women. And so, yeah, the print, the radio, those are all the farmers in the field. But when it comes to social media, that's where the women are seeing our product and seeing where it can benefit. So the video that we just showed is one of our digital advertisements. So we know that in marketing, video gets the most reach as opposed to text or even just pictures. And so we'll be utilizing those types of tactics with that secondary audience.
Great, thank you.
I would just say, is your grandfather still well? I mean, is he in good shape?
Absolutely, yeah. He's 72 years old now, and he's just kicking like a mule. I tell you, can't get him down.
Is he using one of these?
If they weren't still in the prototype phase, I'd say absolutely.
Thank you guys. It's been an honor.
Thank you so much.